Welcome to Peaks Island Radio. I'm Chris. This podcast features stories and interviews about Peaks Island people and events. It's all part of our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week community radio station, which you can find at peaksislandradio.com. In this episode, I'm pleased to be joined by Chris Moore. He's a folk and Americana musician from Gorham. He lived on Peaks for a time and then moved to Nashville, Tennessee. In Nashville, he wrote and performed folk, country, and Americana music, forming the band Kindling Stone. He was also a member of Rust Farm and the Maine-based Fogg brothers before that. Chris has returned to Maine, and he's bringing a new trio with him to Peaks on Friday, November 11th at 7 p.m. at the new Brackett Church. It's part of the Long Winter's Night concert series. The trio features Jeff Christmas, Chris Moore, and Mitch Reed. They'll be playing an acoustic blend of contemporary and traditional Americana, folk, blues, some songs, and some instrumentals. They've got guitar, fiddle, and mandolin. It should be a great time. I spoke with Chris about his life in music and his time on Peaks. So this concert is actually a return to Peaks Island for you, is that right?
That's right. I return every once in a while to visit a lot of friends. My partner, wife, Melissa Hull, and I lived out on Peaks Island together from 1989. We were off for a short stint all the way through 2001. Melissa was out there even before that. So that was quite a long period of time of being part of that community and living out there year round.
Mm-hmm. What part of Peaks did you live on?
So we lived over by just past the 5th Main and looking out at Whitehead Passage there.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. Any particular memories of your time out here that really stand out for you?
There's so many. I mean, people, obviously, and I don't know. We also, I'm not sure if you know, but we ran a restaurant where the Cockeyed Gull is now called Happy Cooking for a couple of years as well. And towards the end of our time on Peaks Island before we moved to Nashville. So that brought us in contact with many people on the island, but certainly the community of friends, and both of our kids were on Peaks Island, and our older son James went to the Peaks Island Elementary School, and so it was a big family time, big community time.
Before we get into the music and your current reason for coming out to the island, can you tell me a little bit about Happy Cooking? I'm not familiar with it. We haven't been out here that long.
Yeah, well, Melissa had been a professional chef for a long time in the Portland area, and cooked at the Good Table out in Cape Elizabeth, which is still out there, and then the Pepper Club in the 80s, which was quite an institution, and cooked with Rebecca Riley at the Mad Apple Cafe for people that go way back. And so she was known as somebody who was very talented in terms of as a chef, as a baker, as a cook. And I was playing music and working as a musician, and we had an opportunity to be able to serve the community in that way. And that was really our approach, was to sort of offer up home style, family style food in that amazing location. But also we had a lot of music there as well. And that was a big part of bringing the community together. And Ellen, who is the concert promoter, worked with us there for a while too. And one of our sort of most notable memories is 9/11, where we were actually in that location, and we decided, as all of us, were shocked and confused on that day, that we would just open up the doors and feed folks and have music and some community together. And I think that was one of those times that sort of our approach towards community and coming together uh, really worked for all of us to support the community. As you know, as anybody from the Peaks Island community knows, it's you're set apart, and it's like living in a small town, but the transition outside the borders of the small town is quite abrupt in that it's water. So that crew really hangs together, and that was a big part of what our experience in connecting with the community through that restaurant was all about. Um, so that's some of that. That's some of that history. Then there was an opportunity for us to go to Nashville for 10 years, which we did, and that was an incredible time for us too.
Wow. And then when you got down to Nashville, what was that experience like? It must have been quite a transition from Maine.
Definitely true. I mean, musically, I was connected with a lot of the people who lived there, and so uh, that was that was fun to be part of a robust professional music community. There was a lot of support among that community of songwriters and some of the friends that we already knew, but certainly a different experience having our kids go to public school in Tennessee, right in Nashville, being in a very diverse um, southern urban area, coming from Maine, which had just barely 1 million people in the whole state, to sort of greater Nashville, which at that time when we moved down there, 2003, was had 1 million people in greater Nashville itself. So that was fantastic. We just loved it. We made some friends that were lifetime friends from that experience, and uh, that both of our kids, who are in their 20s now, really feel like they had a foundation. Certainly, our older son on Peaks Island, but then and in Maine, but really grew up in the South in Tennessee, and that was fantastic. There's nothing like that town.
So tell me a little bit about what brings you back to Peaks Island and back to Maine this coming week for the Long Winter's Night concert series.
Sure. Well, this is a sort of new configuration of musicians who I've known for a while. Jeff Christmas, who is a singer songwriter and plays guitar, and Mitch Reed, who is a fiddler and a multi instrumentalist, and he's from Louisiana. Jeff's from North Carolina originally, and I grew up in Gorham, but have uh, played this acoustic string band music for much of my adult life, being a mandolin player. And we all teach at the community music school up in Yarmouth called 317 Maine. And uh, so we've known each other. We've played some music together for events. And then it came to be that we had an opportunity to play some music for a couple functions and parties together, and it was pretty comfortable and natural, and we liked the sort of mix of American uh, roots music that we're all bringing, but we're all slightly coming at it from a different place, which made it interesting in terms of it our abilities and our influences complementing each other, also with an interest of a sort of shared interest in um, songs we all liked and different kinds of things. So uh, Ellen's been trying to get me to come out as part of that series, and I've been to some concerts out there, and she and Ed are doing an amazing thing, connecting music with the community out there. And this was an opportunity where I thought, oh, okay, here's a trio that we could do this. And so we're really excited about coming out and stretching out a little bit as a relatively new trio, even though all of us have been playing music professionally for decades.
Tell me a little bit about what gave birth to your interest in music.
Well, so my grandfather, my mom's dad, was uh, a piano player and a composer and a songwriter in New York and Philadelphia and New Jersey, um, in 30s, 40s, 50s. And My grandmother wrote lyrics with him. And so I grew up around music uh, a lot. And I started playing piano, taking piano lessons at age 8, and started taking classical violin lessons at age 9 or 10. And then I played classical violin through um, high school when I was 18, and then played in the Portland Youth Symphony Orchestra and other chamber ensembles, and took lessons with a number of students. My first piano teacher actually still teaches Nadine Batter, still teaches at Bowdoin today, and reconnected recently, which has been fun. But uh, then I got really that turned into me discovering traditional music and the mandolin, which is tuned the same as the violin in fifths, G, D, A, E, from lowest to highest, except for you use a pick and not a bow, and there's double strings, two Gs, two Ds, two As, two Es on the mandolin. And I heard Andy Statman play in New York City at the Bottom Line at an old time string band festival with the Wretched Refuse String Band. And I was like, I really want to learn how to play that instrument. And my first mandolin was a Kentucky mandolin that I bought from Buck Dancer's Choice, still in Portland down on
St.
St.
John, yep.
John. But at that time, they were on Longfellow Square across from where One Longfellow is. And before that, they were actually in Old Port on Molden Street. And so they they sold me my first mandolin. My second mandolin I got from Mandolin Brothers out on Staten Island when I was living in New York City after graduating from college with an acting degree. But I had played music through college as well, and then started taking mandolin lessons with Andy uh, out on uh, out um, in Brooklyn in Flatbush, and that was I, I learned about Bill Monroe. He taught me about Bill Monroe, but also taught me about all other kinds of things having to do with the mandolin's place in music, uh, and then I spent a lot of years playing acoustic, traditional folk and bluegrass music, and then got into songwriting. So it started, and songwriting was something that I knew somebody that you could do basically because I knew my grandfather had done it. And I think as kids, if we see that somebody knows how to do something, then it's not such a crazy idea that we might be able to do that too or try it too. So I think that the fact that he was a great musician and improviser and instrumentalist, but also a songwriter, put it in my mind pretty early that songwriting was something that you could do. And so that's something that I really got interested in then in trying my hand at songwriting.
So you mentioned your grandfather a couple times, and that he had been, writing music and playing piano in New York City. And when I think of New York City, I don't get the Americana, string band vibe really out of that area. Did he play that kind of music and write that kind of music, or
Pop,
was he in a different genre?
yeah, popular song and jazz, and that was his thing. He had one composition, one song that was published through Mills Music, which was Duke Ellington's publishing company, and that was one of the high points I think of his career was meeting Duke Ellington and getting sheet music, published piece through Mills Music there. But it's interesting because style and types of music, when it comes down to it, we're putting together in terms of from a songwriting perspective, we're putting together some basic things, which are rhythm and melody and harmony and words. And those come together in the songs of most styles of music. And whether it's classical, whether it's rap and hip hop, whether it's bluegrass, whether it's old time, whether it's jazz standard, whether it's American songbook, a vocal composition at least are pretty much consistent across styles of music. And so I think one of the things I probably was influenced by with my grandfather, which was part of that sort of popular song of that era, and also jazz and the American songbook, classics, and the musical theater, is a real focus on lyrics having to say something, and also a melodic sense of composition.
So I want to pick up the thread of lyrics needing to say something. So do you have a general sort of theme or a message that you're working through in the lyrics that you write? Or is it sort of more episodic, like song by song?
It's a compelling question. I would say for me, one of the things that happens in the process to get me engaged, it's usually coming from an idea or a thought, and it can be something that just occurs to me now or something that I've been sort of chewing on for a while. It comes both ways, but that through the process of writing a song, I want to have some kind of personal, deeper understanding or transformation process that addresses this thing that's sticking in my mind. And a lot of times it can be a conflict or a problem or something that I look in the world and I'm like, this is bothering me. What do I do about this? Why is it bothering me? What is it? And that could be, it could be minutia, it could be big, it could be both simultaneously. And then the process of writing the song ends up being my sort of emotional, intellectual, musical response to that initial seed that struck me. And sometimes it could just be a little melodic hook, but usually when I'm putting words to it, it's something, even if it ends up being sort of not that deep or light or entertaining, or something that is more profound, which is or meaningful. And I tend to sort of be more interested in the things that for me are more compelling as meaning rather than writing something that is designed to be a confection. But sometimes I do that. But it's more for me a process of understanding the world and the challenges that it presents me as a person. And then the process of working on writing that is my working through that. And the song is a result of my response. And in some ways, I hope it does for the listener what the process has done for me, which is that it's it's created a sort of musical result or a map of that emotional process of being a person and contending with something that is confronting you, that's presenting some sort of a challenge or some sort of a query. And in that way, maybe that helps resonate. We can trust certainly that if it resonates with us as people in a meaningful, emotional way, that we're also similar in terms of our emotional makeup, then this is why music is so powerful to connect with other people transformationally that way and emotionally.
I'm going to give you fair warning. Well, it's not going to be fair. It's going to be only a few seconds worth, but um, I want, I'm hoping that you can provide me with, one or two examples of some of your favorite sort of meaningful or thoughtful pieces that you've put together.
So, for example, there's this song that I think we'll play on Friday called "Closer," that was on that record that we made out on Peaks Island, and I remember the moment that song, the idea for that song, occurred to me, and it was just up from the backshore on Peaks, and I was thinking about, like we all do, sort of like, where's the meaning? Where am I supposed to look for for meaning? And sometimes, people look to structured and organized religion for find that. But that's something that I learned a lot about, worked on a lot when I was in Nashville during my time, and this was before we went down there. And I was thinking about prayers, and I thought, when I'm asking a question, I remember thinking that it wasn't so clear what the response the world was giving me was, right? So, and I remember seeing this sort of dying tree with all these vines that had overtaken it. And I thought to myself, I was looking at that tree out of sort of just up from the backshore by where we lived. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's usually what the answer feels like to me when I'm looking for answers from the world. It's like, there doesn't seem to be a living core. It seems to be something that's in a process of change and decay, and it's just overtaken by a tangle of vines. Where's the clarity in that? And then I thought, wait a minute, maybe that's the clarity right there, accepting the reality of the way things are and contemplating that. And that really gave me the sort of seed for that. And then I started working on thinking through that idea in that situation. That's one example. Another example is a song that is on a record that I made with the band I had in Nashville called Kindling Stone. Um, and it's called Broken Racers. And the idea from that song came as when I was thinking back on camping, winter camping with my friend Paul Sarvis many years ago in the White Mountains. We went winter camping, and uh, we woke up in the morning and it snowed, and we went up and we were hiking in the White Mountains in the snow, and I think we saw two other people that whole day, and we were looking down into this amazing, beautiful white blanket of new snow in that dramatic setting there in New Hampshire, and a flock of Canada geese with flying through early winter, right? A flock of Canada geese was flying through the valley below us, and we were looking, and I was like, wow, it's not every day you see a flock of geese beneath you. And I thought, in all the struggles and challenges that we have in life, and making it through the day, and all the things that come with this living on earth, that you know how lucky am I to be able to be with my friend here and stopping this perfectly beautiful, silent, idyllic place and just see this flock of geese passing by. And that was, I was in Nashville when I wrote that song. I was thinking back to that moment as how do we stop, how important it is to stop and look, which, as I say it now, is not that different from that experience of looking at the dead tree with the tangled vines. It's taken in the moment and observing the moment without trying to just categorize it in the parts that are pleasurable that we want, or pushing away the things that we don't want, but trying to look at the 360-degree view of that moment and how can we live like that. And probably in many ways, that's a lot of what's underneath a lot of the songs that I tend to write, even though they might be about a lot of different subjects. And so that one really was working on, uh, um, how important those moments, and we have an opportunity for them at all times to just stop and look and take it in. And if we can get good at that, then I think we can connect with what life can really and the world around us can really be about. And so often the natural world is, it's always available there to give us that, which is one of those things that's so fantastic about Peaks Island, which is no 2 days are the same out there, because all the variables of tide and sun and clouds and wind and temperature, and it's constantly changing like everything is, but it's really apparent when you're out there. And so, anyway, you know, there's a couple of examples.
I think that's terrific. I think that's a really refreshing approach to art and creativity in general. I wonder if, and we don't have to go too deep into a tangent on this, but I wonder if, the past 5 or 10 years, it's been challenging to be able to have those sort of more universalist, deeper perspectives, given the culture in the world right now and the divisiveness and also the sort of now culture. And I wonder if that's impacted your art at all, or if you've struggled against it.
Interesting to think about that, and I think I it's safe to say, and it's all varying degrees of intensity. So I almost feel it comes with an emotional state of guilt for me to say that we've all collectively been through trauma, and because I know how fortunate I am in my personal situation, even though I had COVID and I was challenged with having to do the things that we all had to do to try to figure out stuff, and then not know the future and live with our children and our parents and our families and the world around us and try to it's a challenge there. But I also think it's been uh, what I've been trying to do, and I can really, since you're a radio person, what I can really endorse and recommend is a wonderful podcast from the Rubin Museum of Art, which is a Himalayan art museum in New York City. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they've done 2 seasons of podcasts, mostly around Buddhist themes, called Awaken. And the first one was hosted by the performance artist and musician Laurie Anderson. And then there's another younger um, musician who is hosting this season. And I've gotten a lot out of this, but the real thing that I've gotten out of it, I've been a student of the Buddhist tradition for decades, but um, what I really, it took me a long time to accept, and I think it's related to sort of my creative response, that this podcast was just relentless in reminding me about, was that every opportunity, every feeling, every thought, every situation, everything we think we want, and everything that presents a challenge for us gives us an opportunity to look at it as a 360-degree experience, not just the positive side or the thing we like or the thing we don't like about it, but that something like uh, envy or anger, you know, it can be a lesson for us if we actually can just sit with it. And that's, I think, one of those things that we have as much as we want to hurry everything up, or as much as everything's been chopped up into tiny little pieces in all of our sort of screen experiences where we start to disconnect the mind from the body, um, if we can get ourselves back into our body in the moment and our minds together to actually look at the wholeness of what every moment gives us, then we can do it. We can learn. We can make the progress we're hoping to make, that we all want to do, and we can help each other do that, and we can do that for ourselves, and we can do that in community. And that's one of the reasons I love music, is because it really is, I often say that it's the sort of the emotional superconductor, you know of human connectivity. It speeds everything up because it uses this sort of magical, abstract, um, conveyance method to get people right into an emotional state where, if we were just talking together, although I have to say, we're making some ground here in this conversation, but music a lot of times will take you right there, and we can have very sort of open and intimate experiences emotionally with each other without having to sort of uh, get through the navigating that we often have to, when we're using other methods.
Mhm. Right. Oh, absolutely. And I think that's actually been one of the themes of Ellen's concert series, Ellen and Ed's concert series,
Yeah.
is that they bring together musicians who, when they get into a space and perform, it is very transformative. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what that experience may be like for folks who come to see you perform this coming week.
Sure. Well, I think one of the things that's so interesting, like I alluded to, that it's bringing other people uh, into the experience of this exploration that Mitch and Jeff and I are doing together, musically and emotionally, with the things that we like to play and the way that we like to play them and our influences. And it really is, it's an exploration. There's this sort of ground of American roots music, um, per, broadly defined, um, from these just sort of various regions, many of them rural, many of them southern in this country, but not limited to that. And all of our influences, me as a classical musician, Jeff is, a highly skilled classical vocalist and trained in that way too, and an amazing singer, but also loves folk music. And Mitch, who played with Beausoleil, and so that the great Cajun band for many years. And so it's that dialogue that we're having, and in that setting, then through the messages and the things that attract us to the songs, many of the songs that we're going to play are original songs, but some of them are traditional songs, or other kinds of songs that we all like, and instrumentals as well, which I say are sort of eclectic. Um, then what we're doing, and my colleague in Nashville, Mark Wingate, was very wise once after a concert. He said, we're not uh, um, we're not giving the listener an experience. We're creating the conditions so they can have their own experience in that set.
Mm.
And I think that if we think about that, I think that is something that really is, that really struck with, you know uh, deeply with me. And so, I think the other thing too, since a lot of this conversation has been about sort of big ideas, philosophical concepts, emotional uh, issues, is like part of the reason I think Jeff and Mitch and I like playing music together is just because it's so much fun to do it. So we're having a lot of fun while we're doing it. I think that's something that the listener, in addition to having sharing the experience with us musically. There's also going to be a lot of different ways in, a lot of different doors in. If I think it's not all of one style, not all of one kind of music. So I think you'll get a diversity, but of course it's going to be on these acoustic instruments, and a lot of it will be rooted in American folk music.
That's great. Well, before we go, I just want to know if people wind up going to your show and they really enjoy it, where can they find you? Can they look you up on, streaming platforms? Are you going to have CDs available?
Yep, I think Jeff and Mitchell might bring some of their recordings out. The Kindling Stone, the band that I had in Nashville, and the Rust Farm records are available on all the streaming outlets, whether it's Apple or Spotify or any of those places. And YouTube, wherever you guys find your online music, and you can pour over those things there. And Mitch has played on a lot of recordings. Jeff's made some solo recordings of his songs, and so you'll be able to access it in all different kinds of ways. But I would imagine that there's an opportunity to take home some music if you want to do that and support those artists on Friday. But I will say we're really looking forward to having the adventure of coming out to Peaks and connecting with the community. And we hope to bring some folks out with us too.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we're really looking forward to having you. So thank you so much, both for coming and sharing your music with us, and also for taking the time to have this conversation with me as well.
Well, thanks for doing what you do out there. That's great. And I was really happy to learn about your work. And it doesn't surprise me that the Peaks Island has got somebody mindfully and supportively connecting with the community in this way, and I'm delighted to learn about it.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that. Thanks for listening to this conversation. If you enjoyed digging deeper into the people and places on Peaks, I hope you'll follow this podcast in your podcast app of choice, or check us out on our website at peaksislandradio.com. Next week, we're going to feature the sounds of Maine author and artist Chris Van Dusen and his visit to the Peaks Island Elementary School from early November. In the meantime, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great week.